let's talk about the game. Penn State versus Illinois, 7:30 kickoff. Guys, let's start with some initial thoughts. Ryan, we haven't gotten your thoughts yet on the game so far this week. What do you think as far as how this game plays out, and set the scene for us of what you think is important?
A lot of it, to me, depends on how Penn State plays with their competition, right? We've seen in a hyped up situation, they spend all summer getting ready for West Virginia. They came out and played great. I think this sets up well for that, with them being a top 20 team at home. We'll see if it's a whiteout environment and all that. So I think that bodes well. We've seen them against Minnesota in recent years and Iowa in recent years, teams that are kind of that B class of Big Ten programs, and they do really well, especially at home. So I think that sets up good. Last year, Penn State really was able to outrush them. All we remember is the 2021 game, right, where Illinois was the rushing machine, but Penn State doubled them in rushing yards last year. I think Illinois has an issue with their interior offensive line, just from reading a little bit more and looking back a little bit, but that'll be the big thing. I know Sean wants to talk about how Zane Durant's going to crush Illinois' interior defensive line this week. But the one thing I'd say is, Bowling Green did kind of give them a blueprint for how to beat Penn State. And, Bielema and their staff will be looking at that closely with a lot of short intermediate passes. And Altmyer has done well in those situations. Mm-hmm. But again, as Sean pointed out earlier, the majority of their passing game has gone through two players so far. Penn State cornerbacks are able to play well. But we'll see who steps up in that safety role. Do you think it'll be Lane? Like, who's going to be that safety filling in this week? What do you guys see at practice?
We saw Lane, but at the same time, I have my thoughts on it's probably going to be Cam Miller that steps in to the Lion and starts with Reed back deep, at least to start. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't start the game on your heels, but you start the game like kind of feeling things out, and you probably want the true freshman on the bench to start, and then comes on the field.
Right. So my also matters. Like, what? Go ahead.
I was going to say it also matters what their personnel package is. So if it's 11 personnel, that's different than if it's 12 personnel. That's different. And Jalen Reed, the whole point of Jalen Reed is he kind of bridges the gap, as James Franklin talked about. He can do both. But if they're going to come out in 12 personnel set, obviously Dom DeLuca has something to say about that. But you would probably want Jalen Reed there, as opposed to if they come out with a slot receiver, Cam Miller might fit that a little bit better and give you the leeway to play around with that.
Mm-hmm. So I think Penn State will control the ball pretty well in this one. Their defensive statistics are pretty strong. But if you look back at that Kansas game, like, first off, Kansas rushed for almost 6 yards per carry in that game. They turned the ball over 4 times. If Penn State avoids turnovers, able to rush the ball just like they did last year, I think they're able to keep the ball out of Altmyer's hand a good bit of that game. And, the spread, 18-19, it keeps growing, right? And I think when it came out, everybody was like, man, this seems ridiculously high. I think people know or have a sense that maybe Illinois didn't quite deserve those 2 wins the way it looks like maybe on paper. Obviously, everybody saw that overtime win last Friday, but I wouldn't be surprised if Penn State's able to win this by 20.
Fitz, we got some of your thoughts early in the week. Has anything changed, or have you done any additional research to kind of refine your thoughts from the beginning of the week on Tuesday?
Not really. More down on Nebraska right now after watching that again. They certainly did not help themselves in that situation.
Who I said last week would beat Illinois. Sorry. Another check on the Ryan mistakes. Go on.
Ryan was wrong. Graphic. No, I mean, Penn State, what's Penn State's bread and butter, T. Frank? What have I been saying all year? On offense. Where do they like to get the ball?
To Tyler Warren.
Tyler Warren in the flat. Okay, yep. So Penn State should have, theoretically, practice against that play. I think Illinois scored on that twice, maybe 3 times against Nebraska, where they leap that tight end out of the flat, the play action, roll them out, hit them in the flat. If Penn State can defend that play, they'll be fine. And I think they'll be able to do that. But it was really funny just seeing it over and over again, and it kept working and working and working. And
it worked with an offensive lineman at one point.
Yeah, I mean, it was fascinating to watch that just keep coming about. So if Penn State can defend things like that and take away those receivers on the outside, they'll be all right. Altmyer's better. Like he is a better quarterback, much better quarterback than people remember from the 4 picks last year. The thing about Altmyer, he's going to get the ball out quick. He's going to get the ball out to the outside. He's going to RPO some stuff. If he does throw over the middle, it will be RPO for the most part. So I think Penn State's second level defense, the linebackers are going to have to be, this is the most RPO that they're going to see or that they've seen so far. And I think that they're going to have to be on their toes and figure out how to defend that. And, that's going to go right up the middle of the defense from those 2 box linebackers to the safeties and of course the line position as well. So I think that'll be an interesting dynamic there. But what you got to do, you got to get Altmyer behind. You got to get him to take a drop back instead of a 2-step, 3-step drop and deliver the football. And then you can put some pressure on. And I don't see the Illinois passing attack being one as such, and especially with the offensive line that they have, to play from behind. So you get a lead, you feel okay about this. I will say I think it's probably going to be close in the first half, and I'm saying that because I've not said that so far, and that's the way Penn State's been playing. So if I say it in reverse and Penn State all of a sudden is leading 24-0 in the first quarter, you're welcome. But no, it's a situation where I think Penn State's got a lot of advantages. I've mentioned the interior offensive line. I mentioned Zane Durant. I think Penn State's going to have the opportunity to sort of bully in there and have a game. So I'm excited to see what Durant can do, because he was very good in terms of he's been very good this year, even if the stats haven't completely reflected that. And, maybe this is a game where those stats start to come.
Yeah, Larry is pro in the chat. He was curious if we're live. We're always live at 10 a.m. during the weekday. I know that there were some times in the past that we weren't. We are always live now at 10 a.m. So just to clear that up for anyone who is watching this at 10:55, we are going through the game right now for the first time. He says, Ryan, he's going to say the same thing about Kansas outgaining them, turning it over too much, in Nebraska gave Dylan Raiola all day to throw. And I think that's an important thing. I want to chime in here because I'm going to write about something about this with the quarterback comparison and some of the differences that I've seen in the offense and why I'm so high on Drew Allar, where some of the metrics and some of the perception around Luke Altmyer is that he's so much better. So then who has the better quarterback in this game? It's Drew Allar. Mm-hmm. And I just, to echo some of the things that Fitz said, watching the film yesterday and kind of it has to marinate and then it clicks and finally you find what the thing is. Their offense is highly designed and schemed, and I understand that Penn State's is too. So they do a lot of things with scheme to get open throws for Drew Allar, but the difference is he's got reads on those plays. The number of play actions and RPOs and one read, as in we have a half field read, so you can throw it to one or two levels of the defense, but you're not reading the full field. It's incredible how they can be so different. The offenses can be so different. He has been good when he's been asked to go to his next progression or whatever, but it hasn't been in a situation against a defense that has a backbone necessarily. Right. So that's the biggest thing. And I'm going to get into those details later at bluewhiteillustrated.com, but it finally clicked for me yesterday of what I'm watching is all of these plays. James Franklin said Brett Bielema is about running the ball and completions, and they don't allow for a lot of opportunities for Luke Altmyer to not know what to do with the football.
Right.
And when they do, sometimes he freezes and doesn't throw the football. And that's when Abdul Carter and Denine Sutton can pounce.
There was an interesting play, I believe, in the first half where it was a trip stack on the left and a single receiver on the right. His clear number one read was the single receiver on the right, which was a curl that they completely took away. But he was able to come back to the left. And it wasn't a complete field read. It was, there's going to be a guy on your left, basically at the line of scrimmage or a little bit behind, where you just got to go to him. So he went right and he came all the way back left. And it wasn't a true progression, even though it may have looked as if it was that. So this is a very much two read offense.
And there was another situation where he had that same exact thing and he never looked backside. The front side was covered, and I think they got a pass interference on it, but he never looked at the stack. He had open opportunities at the stack. The other one wasn't covered, but he just threw it in. Anyway, quarterbacks, all that stuff, the context around it, that's the thing I go all day about. But we got to get to our predictions because we're going to go a little bit long anyway, and I don't want to keep these guys too much longer past an hour. So now time for our game predictions, Penn State and Illinois. We're going to go through what we think is going to happen in this game. I'll give you the spoiler alert already. I already deleted the Spider-Man meme, but we're all basically in the same ballpark from a score prediction. So Fitz, can you go through what you think is going to happen in this game?
Yeah, I just continue to look at Penn State's record in bigger games. I know we're not labeling this as a premium game on the ticket, but this is a big game. I mean, it's pretty cool to have a ranked Illinois team come in here at night in late September. I always think this is the best opportunity for a whiteout in terms of late September. Makes a lot of sense with the weather and things like that. So to see them turn that into a game like that, I think is really cool. Even if you wanted UCLA to be the original whiteout. But going back to my prediction, which I've clearly remembered and didn't have to pull up right now, I got Penn State 35-16. I'm curious how Penn State's offense continues that expansion that we saw last week. You got Liam Clifford involved. You got Julian Fleming involved. You got a couple of tight ends involved. Luke Reynolds was in there. So how much of that is Kent State? How much of it is Penn State? Yeah, I think there's a line to be walked there. But I also think that against this defense, there are certain spots where you can excel. Nick Singleton has a spot that you can excel. Trey Wallace on the outside with those outs and those comebacks has a spot where he can excel, and you can extend those drives. You can get more plays that we've talked about before, and you have the opportunity to sort of step on the throat there.
Ryan, what do you think?
34-14, similar. I think they'll maybe just cover. I'm looking for the run game, man. Control the ball. I saw in the chat that Illinois really one of the slower tempos. Well, if they don't if they don't have the ball, they can't really do that a whole lot. So I think Penn State controls it with the ground game. Uses Tyler Warren, uses handful of receivers. Let's see if Amari Evans, see if somebody can get some big splashy plays in here. I wouldn't be shocked if we see one or two, big chunk plays, maybe a touchdown or two. But I like Allar's ability to control the ball. I like Katron and Nick's ability to, consistently gain ground against an Illinois defense that, again, statistically looks all right, but I just don't know that they're as talented as their stats maybe play it out to be right now. So Penn State covers, gets out of here, looks forward to UCLA in 2 weeks. Big one, USC.
T. Frank, Andy Kotelnicki coached against Illinois last year, and one of the more entertaining watches that we had. How much do you think that is a factor in this one?
It's everything. First off, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, he's already primed the pump for this week. I went back, I watched the game in the context of, well, Illinois is next week. And there are plays that he ran last week, and I can talk about this part freely because it's on film. There are plays from last week that are the exact play, augmented a little bit for the talent at Penn State, that destroyed Illinois last year. So he's already setting the table for what he wants to do this week. And there's so many things we could talk about here that I just
poke the bear.
I want to put like all the things that we're not allowed to talk about from practice. Like, I guess just say this. I am now very confident that Penn State can get their players the football in any situation, as opposed to maybe last year where guys had a deficiency. And so they're like, they just run the offense and succeed or fail based on the offense. So Andy Kotelnicki, his influence on the offense, his adaptability, his evolution week to week is all it's it to me, which is why I have them winning 38-17. And I said, okay, so Penn State has scored 34 points in their 2 wins where they weren't necessarily playing great. I think they're playing better. 38 is the baseline for me. I think that Andy Kotelnicki, and I'm giving Illinois the credit of being a good defense and having some elements that can challenge Penn State. Their secondary can be physical. Their defensive line can stop the run a little bit, but I think Penn State's speed and their completeness as an offense is going to overwhelm that for the first time for Illinois this year.